You're about to find out that the car you bought, or the one you're thinking about buying, might be a trap wrapped in fake leather and a 12-inch touchscreen. 3 engineering philosophies dominate the SUV market in 2026, and only one of them was built with you in mind. The other 2 were built with someone else's wallet in mind. This is going to make you mad, and that's okay, because getting mad is the first step toward making a smart decision. I've been studying the automotive market for years, following new releases, recalls, owner complaints, and durability reports from manufacturers all over the world. And I can tell you with complete confidence, there is an enormous gap between what these brands sell you and what they actually deliver after 3 years of ownership. In this video, you're going to understand the philosophy behind the metal of each manufacturer, and you'll walk away knowing exactly what you're buying before you sign anything. But first, if you want to keep getting content like this, straight talk with no fluff and no PR spin, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow more than you know, and it keeps me motivated to keep bringing you this kind of analysis. In 2026, the global SUV market is split into 3 completely different worlds: Japan, Germany, and Korea. And these 3 powerhouses don't just build cars differently, they think about time differently. One of them builds with the next 20 years in mind. Another builds with the next 3 years in mind. And the third builds with the next scheduled service visit in mind. If you're tired of getting fooled by vehicles that look great on the outside and fall apart on the inside, you need to understand the philosophy behind every single bolt. Let's start with Japan. The philosophy of caution, the forever truck. If you look at a 2026 Toyota 4Runner or a Lexus LX600, the first thing that's going to catch your eye is the infotainment screen. It looks small. The system feels like it's a generation behind the competition. The interior doesn't have that futuristic look you see in the German stuff. And that's when some influencer online slams his fist on the table and says the Japanese brands are falling behind. Except there's one detail that influencer never mentions. He trades in his car every year with money from sponsored content. For a mechanic with 20 years under his belt, that simple system isn't a flaw. It's a conscious engineering decision. Japanese automotive philosophy is rooted in material science and conservative engineering. Brands like Toyota, Lexus, and Honda look at a vehicle as a 20-year asset. They are cautious to an extreme, and they do it on purpose. They only adopt a new technology, whether it's a turbo, a hybrid drivetrain, or a digital gauge cluster, after a decade of testing in other markets. After that technology has been beaten, stressed, and proven under tough conditions. When Japan builds an engine, they're not chasing the highest horsepower number squeezed into the smallest possible block. They're chasing thermal stability. They oversize the cooling system. They use higher-grade metal alloys in the cylinder heads. And they prioritize a power delivery that doesn't stress the mechanical package. That's why a Japanese SUV can feel a little sluggish compared to its German rival. It's not screaming to give you performance. It's breathing steady, so it can do the exact same thing 300,000 miles from now. Here in the States, where the roads in some areas look like a war zone and preventive maintenance is still a foreign concept for a lot of folks, that philosophy makes even more sense. In Japan, the wow factor is replaced by the start it again without a problem factor. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Germany. The lease philosophy, the high-performance fashion statement. If Japan builds for the 20-year owner, Germany builds for the first owner. A 2026 BMW X3, a Mercedes GLC, or an Audi Q5 are works of precision. They are engineered to be the best version of themselves during the first 36 months. The driving dynamics are impressive. Highway stability feels rock solid. The interior has that kind of finish that makes you take pictures before you even start the engine. But German engineering follows a very specific philosophy, one I call packaging above everything else. To deliver that stunning performance, they stuff twin turbos, high-pressure injection systems, and what feels like miles of complex wiring into an engine bay that doesn't have an inch to spare. They use plastic cooling components that are, in practice, ticking time bombs with an expiration date. Why? Because plastic is lighter and more efficient during the first 50,000 miles. And that's exactly where the German thinking stops. In the German engineering mindset, a car is a high-performance fashion item. You drive it during the loan period. You enjoy the prestige, the looks you get in the parking lot at the mall, the HD backup camera. And the moment that warning light starts blinking, you dump it and move on to the next model. They're not building a machine to last. They're building a machine for right now. If you're driving a German SUV with more than 90,000 miles on it here in the US in 2026, a very different reality from Europe where the maintenance infrastructure is on another level, you're not really an owner anymore. You're a loyal, recurring customer at your mechanic's shop. And he loves you for it. Now we get to the disruptors. Korea. The disruption philosophy, Silicon Valley on four wheels. Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. Over the last decade, Korea pulled off the biggest image turnaround in the history of the auto industry. They went from being known as the cheap car that rusts in 3 years, to building some of the most visually striking SUVs you'll see on the road today. The Hyundai Tucson, the Kia Sportage, and the Genesis GV80R cars that turn heads. And that's not an exaggeration. The Korean philosophy is simple. Move fast and break things. They operate like a tech startup. If Japan takes 10 years to adopt a new screen, Korea takes 10 minutes. They offer the equivalent of $80,000 worth of technology and luxury in a car that costs $50,000. And their bet is that you, the consumer, are going to be so dazzled by the panoramic LED light bar and the remote parking system that you won't notice where they cut corners on the metallurgy. Korea runs an engineering model I call warranty as a marketing shield. They know their engines and dual-clutch transmissions have higher failure rates than the Japanese. The solution? A 5-year warranty with generous coverage. It's a brilliant move from a business standpoint. It gives consumers the confidence to buy a mechanically riskier product because it's covered on paper. The problem is what happens when that coverage runs out, and you find out the replacement part costs a small fortune and the delivery time is anyone's guess. If you want to understand why your trusted mechanic drives a Tacoma with 150,000 miles on it while he spends his whole day fixing brand new BMWs, you need to understand what I call the German complexity tax. German engineering is fascinating and frustrating at the same time. Take BMW's B58 engine, the inline 6-cylinder that powers the X3 and several other models in the lineup. The iron block, the pistons, the core mechanical package, it's a work of art. Probably the best engine Germany has produced in a decade. But Germany doesn't just build an engine. It builds a plastic ecosystem around it. In a 2026 German SUV, the cooling system is a nightmare of quick-connect plastic fittings and composite thermostat housings. And because these engines run at extremely high temperatures to burn off every last bit of emissions, that plastic is getting cooked constantly. By year 5 of ownership, that plastic gets as brittle as a cracker that's been sitting in your glove box since 2019. A cheap plastic connector fails. The coolant escapes in seconds. And because German engines use thin cylinder head walls to save weight, the head warps before you even have a chance to pull over. Here in the States, where summer heat in places like Arizona, Texas, or Florida is already brutal on any cooling system, that problem gets even worse. You're not just paying for the performance. You're paying a tax for the complexity of having the most critical system in the car, the one that keeps the engine from melting, made out of the same material as a disposable water bottle. Now let's talk about Japan's transition to turbos, and the question that's got a lot of people panicking. Is the forever engine dead? The biggest controversy of 2026 in the automotive world is the Japanese abandoning the classic naturally aspirated engine. The 2026 Toyota 4Runner and the Land Cruiser 250 officially swapped their large displacement naturally aspirated engines for a turbocharged 2.4-liter 4-cylinder. And the internet lost its mind. The off-road forums are on fire. The enthusiast Facebook groups are split down the middle. Everybody screaming that Toyota went soft, that they sold out, that it's over. But here's the mechanical truth that nobody is explaining properly. Not all turbos are the same. While Germany uses the turbo to squeeze ridiculous horsepower out of a compact engine designed to impress during the loan period, Japan is using the turbo for a completely different reason. They're adapting the technology to maintain that legendary durability within the new emissions requirements. It's the same conservative philosophy as always, just wearing new clothes forced on them by global environmental regulations. The right question isn't whether the Japanese turbo will hold up. The right question is, do you trust the engineering of a company that tested this for a decade before putting it in a production vehicle? Toyota's 2.4 turbo is over-engineered in ways you're not going to find in any Korean or German equivalent. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means in the real world. Active scavenging oil pump. Toyota uses a specialized lubrication system that keeps the turbo bearings oiled even at extreme tilt angles, or during hot shutdowns. You know when you get home after a long highway run, shut the car off, and the turbo is still spinning with all that heat built up and no oil circulating? That's the silent killer of cheap turbos. Toyota solved that at the root. Water-cooled integrated exhaust manifold. By casting the manifold directly into the cylinder head and cooling it with water, they eliminated the heat absorption problem that was destroying turbos before 50,000 miles in the previous generation. That's real engineering, not a spec sheet trick. Japan is proving that you can have a turbo without a built-in expiration date. They replaced the displacement of the V8 with intelligent thermal management. It's still real metal, real engineering, just in a smaller and more efficient package. Now we need to talk about Korea, the warranty wall, and the dual-clutch transmission disaster. If you look at a 2026 Hyundai Tucson or a 2026 Kia Sportage, you're looking at a masterclass in feature packaging. The giant screen, the LED lighting everywhere, the massaging seats, the camera on every angle. From the outside, it's hard not to fall in love. But underneath that pretty skin, Korea had been running into a mechanical wall for years. For a long time, Korea pushed the dual-clutch transmission like it was the future of automotive gearing. They called it sporty, efficient, modern. In reality, it was a way to deliver impressive numbers on the spec sheet at a lower cost than a solid 8-speed traditional automatic. And in 2026, the truth came out in a way that can't be hidden anymore. The metal couldn't keep up with the marketing. We saw a huge spike in Korean transmissions locking up, jerking, and failing in stop-and-go traffic, because the clutch packs simply were not designed to handle the weight of an SUV over 4,400 pounds sitting and crawling in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the interstate. And anyone who commutes in a major city knows that's just Tuesday. In a quiet admission of defeat, Korea is moving several of their 2026 models back to traditional torque converter automatics. Why? Because that generous warranty was starting to cost them way too much money. The math stopped working. Korea is excellent at software and perceived quality, that feeling you get when you run your hand across the trim at the dealership. But when it comes to friction components, the gears, the clutch packs, and the high-stress metal alloys, they're still trying to catch up to the Japanese level. They build up to the warranty wall. They make sure the car holds together through the coverage period. But they don't lose any sleep over what happens 1 mile after that. Now let's talk about something no dealership is ever going to tell you at the point of sale. There is a massive gap between what a car is worth under the showroom lights and what it's worth when that new car smell has been replaced by old coffee and road dust. A lot of people in 2026 choose an SUV based on the monthly payment, completely ignoring the single biggest cost of vehicle ownership, which is depreciation. The truth that automakers hide is that the used car buyer is the final judge of a vehicle's engineering. When a car has 7 years on it, the fancy ambient lighting doesn't mean a thing anymore. The only question that matters is, will this car destroy me financially? And that's where the financial bloodbath begins, and the gap between Japan, Germany, and Korea turns into a canyon. If you look at the 2026 resale data for a Toyota 4Runner or a Lexus GX with 7 years of use, the numbers are remarkable. These vehicles frequently retain between 65% and 70% of their original value, even after more than 60,000 miles. For anyone not familiar with this market, that sounds like brand fanaticism. For anyone who understands personal finance, that's what I call the resale shield. The used car buyer isn't looking for the fastest 0 to 60 time. He's looking for an asset, not a liability. And because Japanese SUVs are built with that 20-year philosophy I explained earlier, the market knows that a Land Cruiser or a 4Runner with 60,000 miles on it isn't at the end of its life. It's at the beginning of its second chapter. There's no plastic time bomb hiding under the hood waiting for the right moment to hand you a $3,000 repair bill. When you buy Japanese, you're not just buying a car. You're buying a check you can cash 7 years from now for nearly the same amount you paid. It's the closest thing to a savings account on 4 wheels that exists in the automotive industry. And in a country where inflation eats into your purchasing power every single year, that's not a small detail, that's a financial strategy. Now let's look at the other side of the ledger. The 70% collapse, the German maintenance wall. A 2026 BMW X3 or an Audi Q5 is a technological marvel when it rolls off the dealer lot. The problem starts the moment the factory warranty expires. And that's when mechanics use a very specific expression: the maintenance wall. In the used car market, a German SUV is treated like a high-risk bet. The second-hand buyer already knows about the complexity tax. He's already heard about the sensor failure that runs $2,000, the air suspension leak that costs $3,500, and the absurd labor cost to fix a simple oil leak that requires pulling the engine. Here in the States, where dealer labor rates have gone through the roof and a simple diagnosis fee at the dealership already makes your wallet sweat, that problem hits even harder.
Because of the brutal cost of keeping a German SUV running past 5 years, demand for them in the used market falls off a cliff.
We're seeing drops of up to 70% in value on some German luxury SUVs within the first 5 years of ownership. You might have bought that Mercedes GLC for $65,000, but in year 6, if you're lucky, you'll get $20,000 for it. You weren't really an owner of that car. You paid a prestige fee to drive it during the easy years, when everything was still under warranty and the problems were just getting started. The German SUV is a depreciating liability that punishes anyone brave enough, or careless enough, to hold onto the keys after the warranty runs out. Now let's talk about the Korean identity crisis. The bet on mile 60,001. Korea is facing a pretty peculiar financial identity crisis. On one hand, they have the best warranty in the industry, 5 years with generous coverage depending on the model and trim. On the other hand, the used car market still looks at them with a quiet skepticism that no amount of advertising can shake. The central problem is warranty transfer. In many situations, that generous warranty that was the big selling point only covers the original owner. When the car is sold, the coverage drops dramatically for the second owner. That creates a dead zone in Korean resale values. Buyers are increasingly wary of a Kia Sportage or Hyundai Tucson with high mileage. They've heard the stories about the engineering shortcuts protected by the warranty, and about the disposable technology mindset that Korea still carries as a legacy from the days when they were building budget cars to compete on volume. Meanwhile, Genesis, the Korean luxury brand, holds its value better than a standard Hyundai. But it still doesn't come close to the rock-solid stability of a Lexus on the used market. Korea is stuck in the middle. Not cheap anymore, but not fully trusted yet in the eyes of the market. Until they prove that their metal holds up better than their marketing promises, Korean SUVs are going to keep suffering from this identity crisis that costs owners thousands of dollars at trade-in time. Now we've reached a topic that in 2026 is fundamentally changing what it means to own an SUV. The subscription trap. The pay-to-use model. For decades, if the hardware was installed in your car, it was yours. You paid for it, it's yours. End of story. In 2026, that logic no longer exists. The German automakers were the pioneers of this shift. We're seeing 2026 models with heated seats, adaptive headlights, and even four-wheel drive installed from the factory, but locked behind a digital gate. If you don't pay the monthly subscription fee, that hardware is dead weight sitting inside your car. You're carrying a feature that physically exists in the vehicle, but has been disabled by software until you hand over your credit card. Korea is watching closely and has already started experimenting with the same model on their 2026 electric and hybrid launches, offering performance upgrades through over-the-air updates and infotainment apps as paid subscriptions. Japan, for now, is the holdout. Toyota and Honda are betting that their customers value full ownership above any additional digital feature. The truth that nobody says out loud is that your car is turning into a smartphone on 4 wheels. And if your credit card expires, your car can literally become less capable than it was yesterday. Now let's talk about the right to repair. The 2026 battle that's going to define the future of automotive maintenance. By mid-2026, we're at a tipping point for independent mechanics. In Europe, the new Right to Repair directive went into effect, requiring automakers to provide parts and software access to independent shops. Here in the US, that battle is still far from settled. The truth is that German and Korean SUVs are becoming increasingly closed systems. They use a process called parts pairing, where a new component, whether it's a headlight or a power window motor, simply will not work unless it's digitally authenticated by the factory server. That kills the independent shop. It kills the owner who likes to do his own maintenance. And here in the US, where a lot of people rely on their local mechanic to avoid the outrageous rates at the dealership, that is a serious problem. Only Japan continues to prioritize a reparable architecture. While a 2026 BMW requires a proprietary factory tool just to register a new battery, you can still service a 2026 Toyota 4Runner with a standard OBD scanner and a basic wrench set. Any decent independent shop anywhere in the country can work on it. And now we've arrived at the final verdict. After analyzing the philosophies, the mechanical details, and the financial bloodbath of the used car market, here is the definitive conclusion from someone who actually studies this industry. If you're buying a vehicle with your own hard-earned money, and you plan to drive it for 10, 15, or 20 years, buy Japanese. Specifically, look at the 2026 Land Cruiser or the 4Runner. Yes, they have turbos now. But the iron block and the cooling systems are still built to outlast you. It's the only corner of this industry that still sees the customer as an owner, and not as a subscriber to a service. If you want the impressive drive feel, the status at the valet stand, and the top-tier performance, lease German. But don't buy. Enjoy the BMW X3 or the Mercedes GLC for 3 years. Stay strictly within the warranty period, and hand the keys back before the plastic complexity tax shows up on your bill. Enjoy the show, but don't stick around to clean up the stage. If you want the most technology for your dollar and you have a serious fear of repair bills, buy Korean. But here's the key move. Sell it before it hits 60,000 miles on the odometer. Use that warranty as your safety net, but don't be around when the warranty wall shows up in front of you. Korea builds a fantastic car for 10 years of ownership. They just haven't mastered the art of the 20-year car yet. The world is moving toward disposable appliances. The 2026 SUV market wants you to be a permanent technology tenant, paying a subscription for heated seats, for headlights that are already installed in the car, for performance the engine already has but that was disabled by software. But by choosing metal over marketing, you can still find a vehicle that respects your wallet and your time. Stop buying the wow factor and start buying real metal. Because when the screens go dark and the subscriptions run out, the only question that's going to matter is, does it still start? If this video opened your eyes to a reality that automakers and dealerships will never tell you, hit that like button right now. It helps this channel reach more people who need this information before they sign a contract. Subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, because there's still a lot of truth that needs to be told. See you in the next one.